Hi, I'm Beth Waitla-Fever, PRC Training and Implementation Specialist, and this video is one in a series to help you learn how to use the PRC AAC Literacy Planner Book Club Edition. In this activity, we're going to talk about some before reading activities that you can do to provide your students some background knowledge about the objects they're going to read about in the story. You could have each student individually complete one of these forms, or it's a fun group activity to do with your entire class. Each book has a reading plan, and in the reading plan, in the before reading section, you'll see a suggestion of some items from the story to put in your grab bag. You can choose other items as well. These are just some suggestions to get you started. You can see that for the book Anne of Green Gables, the suggestions are a red wig, flowers, liniment, cream with a menthol smell. This is going to provide a real sensory experience for our student. It's a very strong menthol smell, like cream you might use for a muscle ache or pain, or a chest rub that you might use when you have a cold. A pin or a brooch, because that's another item that's in the book. And a small chalkboard. Let's take a look and see how we would put this activity into action. We're going to pull up the book item grab bag and we're going to fill in the title. Okay, let's pretend we're going to read Anne of Green Gables. And maybe our item is a red wig. And this is something you could get at a dollar store, or you could just use a picture if you don't have an actual item. Students can use their device to talk about it. We're going to say, what is this called? And maybe somebody tells us it's hair. Next, we can talk about, what does this thing look like? We could say it's red. And under shape and size, we could say it looks long. We can continue our discussion by talking about the hair and saying, what do you do with it? And somebody uses their communication device and says, brush, right? We can brush hair. Continuing our group discussion, we could talk about, where would I find hair? And so then, using the communication device and having this group discussion, your students might offer something like, on your head. So by continuing this discussion, we're really helping our students understand about this item. So when they encounter it in the book, they'll have really good understanding about it. So next up, we could talk about, what is it made of? And maybe they say little string, by using their vocabulary to come up with, what can I talk about what hair is made of? Another thing we could ask is, what else do you know about hair? It can be interesting to find out what your students have to say about this. They could talk about different colors of hair. They could talk about different sizes, different textures. Some people have hair that is long. Some people have hair that is short. Maybe they just say different colors, and that's what you put in this box. So now we have the form completed for our before reading. We're going to leave the section that says who used it in the book empty, because this gives us a purpose for reading. So we're going to say to our students, we learned an awful lot about hair, and red hair seems to be really important for the story Anne of Green Gables. Let's read the story, and when we're finished, we're going to come back and fill in this box and find out who used it in the story. Or sometimes it might make more sense to say, who was this item very important to in the story? So we're going to put this away until we read the story. And then when we read the story, we're going to say, remember when we learned about this item, we learned about hair, it can be red, it can be long, you can brush it, and so forth. Then we're going to look at the form at the end, and we're going to go back and fill in that box. Who used it in the book, or who was it important to in the book? And in this story, it was really important to the girl. So we could either say girl, or we could use her name and say Anne. So have fun building background knowledge before you read the story with the book item grab bag activity. Remember, students are going to use their AAC devices to talk about the item. And then you can either write it down on the form, you can connect their accent device to the computer and they can use computer emulation to write it, or you could use Google typing, open up a new Google Doc and have the device transcribed into the Google Doc. While reading the story, remind the students what they learned when doing this activity about the item. Then after reading, return to this activity to add in who used it in the story or who it was important to in the story. Have fun learning about the items you'll read about when you're using the stories from the PRC AAC Literacy Planner Book Club.